And I honestly believe that it comes from providing a exceptional service. The client's going to remember like well after the event, don't even care like what the actual photo booth may look like, but they're going to remember the way that you made them feel throughout the entire experience, the way that their guests felt, and then the overall end product, the end result of the product. At this point, our price is our price. We're not going to discount it because it doesn't fit your budget. Like one of our mentors said, our price is based on our knowledge and expertise and not your budget.
Understanding your client experience is one of the key parts to actually setting up a workflow of how you're doing your processes in your company. Today's conversation is going to be super helpful for those of you that hear certain terminology and you're thinking to yourself, like, why does it matter how I do X, Y, and Z inside of my client flow? And you're like, but what is even a client flow? All of these things can feel like they're big terms, but in reality, what do you want your client to feel like through their process of working with you? So I'm super excited to have Troy here to be able to speak to y'all about your client experiences. And here's the cool thing is that we met each other. It has to have been at least 9 years ago.
Definitely. If not
Yeah,
10.
like it's been 19 years ago. And the cool thing is that he's doing some super amazing things in New Orleans. And I'm going to let him share a little bit about himself as well as the company in which he has. And let me tell you real quick before we jump into it. When I saw all the cool things, like this is why it's super important on social media is like to share what you're up to, regardless if you're trying to per se sell to the people that you're sharing with, because it's super amazing to see someone's journey throughout their business. And here's the great thing is that when people are watching, you never know when they will become customers or they may have opportunities because you do such an amazing job of showcasing like what makes you look different and how much of a great experience you're looking to give to your clients. And that's honestly why I thought to ask you to be one of the speakers in this podcast was because I saw that that was a value that you had inside of your company. And I can't say that for everyone that I see on social media. So I just want to say thank you for being a yes. And I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Troy, and I am one half of Mirror Image Photo Booths. And we are a luxury photo booth company based in New Orleans, Louisiana. We specialize in weddings, social events, as well as brand activations. And brand activations can be anything from like small corporate gatherings to huge activations like we did for Super Bowl. So yeah, we pride ourselves on being a luxury provider here in New Orleans, and we definitely have to set ourselves apart from the rest of the market to be able to ask for premium prices as well as, cement ourselves as a luxury provider.
And I love that you even have that classification of a luxury provider. Here's the thing. Some people throw that name out there and they don't step up to it because I feel like, yes, you can charge what you feel like you're worth. Yes. However, for people to continue to pay what you think you're worth, something has to match. So what made you come to the point of getting into this industry, but also saying, we don't want to just have it that people are just reaching out for other types of events. And there's always say on this channel, it's not about right or wrong. It's about what type of client you're wanting and the type of service you're wanting to provide. So what got you into the industry and gave you the courage to just go into this specific niche of it all?
Well, it's kind of a crazy story because like you said, when you met me, I wasn't in events at all. I have a background in fashion and marketing and a strong background in like customer service. The pandemic happened. I relocated from Atlanta back to New Orleans, to pretty much get like a reset on life. I met my now partner, Orlando. He had relocated back to New Orleans, not relocated back, but he relocated to New Orleans. He's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He pretty much was the visionary behind our business. He has a wedding photography background of over 11 years. So he moved to New Orleans with the hope of, starting his wedding photography business here. However, things were a little slow for him in that aspect. So he saw the opportunity of getting photo booths. I vaguely remember him bringing it up to me because, like, in my background, the when I think of a photo booth, I think of like the photo booth kiosk or the huge enclosure you would
Yeah.
see at the mall that print the strips. So I didn't even like really see the vision of like a photo booth or open air photo booth, what
Yeah.
we call them, at an event. So he got the equipment. I think he had it like delivered to my house because it had to be on
Mhm.
freight. I remember him like setting it all up. And this was June of
Okay.
2021. Between June and October of that year, he was, I think, doing like little small events here and there for people that like he knew. I was working at Saks at the time, doing sales with fashion and whatnot. Really enjoyed my job, really enjoyed the money. So there really wasn't no need for me, or I wasn't looking for a
Yeah.
side hustle. But it wasn't until he was setting up his photo booth or 360 in New Orleans. They have a lot of street vendors. So the culture here, every Sunday is called something like people will go
Mhm.
under the bridge. And a whole bunch of locals will come out. It's like music, food, drinks. He would set up the photo booth and charge the locals like $10 for a 360 video. And I remember him telling me he made like $1,000 in a few hours. So one Saturday I was off. I went with him to see what he was doing, and I think he made like $1,300. And I was like, wow, this is you really
Yeah.
got something. So I was like, if the locals could do this for $10, I was like, if you do something like this on Bourbon Street, you can definitely get $20 from
Yeah.
the tourists. So we did that, and it was really good money. But like that was a side hustle, or quick money,
Yeah.
as you would say. I instantly saw like the vision or the value of what he had. He had already had like his website, Instagram, and all of that. So I just started like looking at everything and seeing where I can like add value. So like you said, one of the biggest things I knew that I can do is like revamp his
Mhm.
Instagram, just based on what I was looking at from competitors and people just in our local market. People were posting the same, as far as you would see the 360 video and the overlay, but you really wasn't getting a experience of the event that someone
Yeah.
was taking. And in the beginning, like I said, we were doing like backyard parties. So those weren't our ideal events, but it gave us
Yeah.
the experience, as far as like what we to learn our equipment, and as well as the type of events we
Yeah.
didn't want to do. So from there, we just started like manifesting. We were write our ideal client down. We were write venues that we wanted to work at, event planners that we wanted to
Mhm.
work with. And we made like a list of probably like 25, 50 like
Yeah.
names. And then we started just calling them or emailing. And before we even got any like yeses or response to anybody, a local event planner reached out to us. She was like number 15
Wow.
on our list. She emailed us. It was like 11. It was in the middle of the night, after
Yeah.
hours, pretty much. We're like super new in the business. So we were up during those hours. I think we were like brainstorming or
Uh-huh.
doing something. She reached out. We emailed her back immediately. She needed us for like a last minute event in like a day
Okay.
or two. So it was like one of these situations where like preparation met
Yeah.
opportunity. We wowed her with our services. She was wowed by the output of our content. So like a budding relationship started from there. So we just kept building on that relationship, continue to build and elevate our experiences, from the way that we looked online, the way that we presented ourselves
Yeah.
in person, and of course the overall quality of our product. So it was just like those three things, just constantly like working on that, revamping, revising. We've been able to build a six-figure business in less than
Yeah.
4 years. Um, and I only feel like we are just reaching, like, we're just at the
Yeah.
beginning. Um, and I honestly believe that it comes from providing a exceptional
Yeah.
service, like outside of the actual photo booth. Like you said, it's something that the client's going to remember like well after the event. Don't even care like what the actual photo booth may look like, but they're going to remember the way that you made them feel throughout the entire experience, the way that their
Yeah.
guests felt, and then the overall the end result of the
And
product.
I love from what you shared, what I also heard was like you allowed yourself to get paid and learn at the same time. And learning isn't just only learning, you had shared about learning on the equipment, but also learning like what kind of clients you wanted to work with, look into seeing exactly what types of events you wanted to associate with. And then the second thing that I also heard was the fact that you were intentional about what type of connectors, because I call venues and planners connectors. So those of us that um, the way that I see certain types of vendors, for lack of better wording, in our industry, those are going to be extensions to the planning process. And I often will tell people,
Mhm.
like, when you get clear about what connectors you want to actually be a resource to, you should actively be trying to get on their list. Because if you really were able to get a solid two people to send you referrals and book you, that will be a lot of work. That does not mean only get on two
Mhm.
lists, because depending on how busy those two people are, that might not get you busy enough, or give you enough work. Because I say that 80% of your income will come from a 20%. So I always say get on a different list, because everyone won't always have you as busy as others. So you just don't want to say, "Oh, I got one person." Granted, it may work out that you have that one person that's going to like ride or die with you, but often you still need to be able to bring in work. So I'm glad that you shared about having that list, because I often tell people like reach out to venues, reach out to planners, because for us, one of the most painful parts sometimes for us isn't the planning process. It's not even organizing. It's finding people that we feel as if we can trust to help with executing those events. So if I know that, oh my gosh, this person is going to arrive on time, I know I can count on them. Like I am always going to reach out to that person. Now, if I know it's going to take you 5 days to reply back to things, you get there anywhere between a few moments before it's supposed to set up, and that gives me anxiousness, I probably will not book you as often. So it's like I'd rather have
Yeah.
someone that I can trust. So I'm glad that you shared that that was something that you have focused on in the beginning. And if you don't mind sharing, like right now, how many different venues or planners do you feel as if you have a relationship with, like as a preferred vendor?
Um, I would say quite a few. I would say definitely I can a
Mm,
handful, five at the least. But like you said, definitely don't rely
yes.
on one. For us, all it took was that one to like expand our vision. Not only are they still here as we continue to like raise our prices, but like from the beginning, they instilled in us like the value to learn your value, to add value to your service, to be able to
Yeah.
ask for more, and also not to be afraid to
Hmm.
ask for more. Because even in that, like it's in, I feel like in the event space, it's all about, like you said, you call them connectors because it's all about those
Yeah.
connections that you make, regardless if it is an event planner, people who do
Yeah.
balloons, the florists, they would refer you to other people when your services are needed. So even outside of the event planners, like we've made connections with other people where we do like swaps
Hmm.
of service for each other, refer each other for other jobs. So um, yeah, always, I don't know, when we go to events, in a sense, like I'm always like, I guess, feel like I'm being interviewed as well as
Yes.
interviewing the people who are around us, just to see ways that we can make connections. And for me, I tend to believe that like I'm a
Mm,
introverted person. So I get extroverted when I'm around people who like energize me
okay.
naturally. So like even for me, when I'm out making connections and networking, I try to make genuine connections versus I'm trying to connect with somebody just because what they could
Yeah.
do for me or what I could possibly do for them. And I feel like we've gone far by making like true, genuine
Yeah.
connections with people, because is now it's more than business now. I feel like we're friends, where they invite us to personal things, and ask us to do things outside of working. And that's always a good feeling, like whenever we do make those type
I
of
love that.
connections.
I love that share. And so like all of this still does tie back into the foundation of having a great client experience, because the clients our client is one part, but also the experience that we're giving to other stakeholders are in the event process, be it the venues, be it the planners, like everyone has an experience of us. So what I would want to know from you, because you went into it knowing, not knowing, but you went into it wanting to be able to really wow people by what you were doing and the type of service that y'all are offering. So, what inspired you to make the client experience a top priority in your business?
Just my background in high end fashion. So like one of my first retail jobs was
Ah,
for Burberry. So it was like I always had that. It was always an elevated experience. Like it was, you had to answer the phone a certain way. When you give the money back to the clients, it had to be like given back to them a certain way. And it was always like the smallest detail of things that like mattered. Like the normal person probably wouldn't care or probably wouldn't pay attention to, but certain people pay attention to those small details. So it's, my experience in high end retail. Like I said, I worked at Burberry very early on. In college, I had an internship with Gucci and their client services department. So that was like a very hands-on white glove service. Clients who didn't even have to come into the store. So it was like you would make phone calls through the Rolodex. Sometimes they would call in, say what it is that they wanted, and you would have to prepare that, and still provide a luxury experience like through the phone and through the way that they're going to receive their package through the mail. So it was like that. Even my experience with Herbalife, a lot of the way that they market, the way that they like tell us to like self promote ourselves, all of those lessons like tied into the experience that we created within our company. That I wanted it to be and feel like a luxury brand from the initial inquiry. Like we try to provide a concierge level experience. So, it feels good when the client just lets us know that they appreciate the continued communication. Even when there are times we're a small business, so even when there are times where we may lapse in our communication, we always try to still like apologize and still have like a high level expectation with ourselves as well as for our client. Because like you said, a lot of times one of the biggest things we hear is that we love how fast we reply. Whenever they do have any questions, it feels easy to
yeah.
communicate with us. And then sometimes we just over deliver. So at this point, it's like you kind of expect and know what your clients are going to be expecting. So we try to beat them to the punch. And a lot of times they appreciate that so
And
much.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's like, because the fast reply, the proper communication is so important. I had shared at the end of last year with one of the team building activities we were trying to offer inside of my corporate business. There was someone who I reached out to, because this specific service is not, a lot of people are not promoting it. They do this. It's not like, it's a like a maker's class, a specific type of maker's class. And so I Googled, it was only a few people that showed that they actually did that service. I reached out to the person. I reached out, they're like, oh, yes, we can do this. I'm like, okay, great. I was like, send me pricing, please. I had to reach out to them 3 times and they still never sent me pricing. In the meantime, because I've
Mhm.
been doing this for 15, almost 15 years at this point, I know to not put all my eggs in a basket when I'm reaching out to any kind of vendor. And so I ended up finding someone else who I've been working with now. And I would say with them, I've probably have spent at least, I would say at least $5,000 to $6,000, because she was able to give me her pricing, get everything set up. And people think like, oh, individuals may not be serious or different things. And it's not that people aren't serious. You're just not reaching out to them, or you're forgetting about them, or not giving them the confidence. Because I bet by you putting a initial effort towards even just the initial communication, that helps with building confidence. Because that, at the end of the day, with client experience is confidence. Is it
Yeah.
it reassures someone I made the right choice, or I think I'm about to make the right choice because I chose to work with you.
Yeah. And also, even just being able to communicate properly your
Yes.
value. That's one of the things like that's we really feel is a part of our client experience is that we start to build that value within our services like immediately. Because I would say we're definitely probably the most expensive booth
Uh-huh.
in our city. Like typically like year one when our prices were a lot lower when we would communicate and have those consultations, sometimes we would get the booking like on
Yeah.
the call. Now that our prices have gone up, we see that it may take our leads a little
Yes.
bit longer to say yes because like you said they're still going to collect
Yeah.
the quotes, not because they don't want to go with us, is that they probably need to compare the prices as well as compare the
Yes.
value. So it really feels good when we have that talk and they say they'll get back to us. And again, we like to do our follow up. We found like once in Herbalife, they always say there's goal and
Yes.
follow up or fortune and follow up. So we will always do our follow up. Sometimes, like I said, it'll take them a little bit longer, but then they will come around and be like, hey, we're ready to
Mhm.
proceed. Sometimes, or a lot of times, we get we're going to move in a different direction because, you know, the prices is
Yeah.
within our budget. But to be a luxury provider, we still have like a 44%
Which is
conversion
amazing.
rate. Um, yes, which I believe in our industry, just the average closing rate conversion rate is like between 10 and
Mhm.
30%. But it's a lot of things that we've just been learning as far as that, making sure that we kind of take care of our customers, even if the client doesn't book with us, we still try to provide them an excellent experience because we have found out or have seen a client may not go with us the first time. They may book with someone else, experience their service, and then still come back around and rebook with us. And then to me, that's just a testament of before they even fully booked or have experienced us, what they see
Mhm.
online or the experience that they've had with us just in communications is different than what they have experienced. So it's just be like those small things we pride ourselves in because again, it's more than just the photo booth. It's the overall experience. So that's like even we don't even say we sell photo booth packages anymore. We sell experiences for weddings and
Oh,
whatnot. Yeah.
and I'm glad that you mentioned something that's very important for people, like understanding what is your booking rate or your conversion rate. Like that is super important. And sometimes people will chase a high conversion rate. And if your conversion rate, depending on what you do, so I'm going to use this as a broad statement, but if you're having a 90% conversion rate for specific types of services, it may very well be that you're very underpriced and you're getting a lot
Mm,
of value based people, not like experience based people. And that's not either right or wrong. Like sometimes people would chase a lot of volume. And I've even been guilty at wanting volume inside of my spectrum of service. However, at some point you're like, I
same
am
here.
working way too hard. When I can have one person to hire me and I can make the same amount of money than me doing three, I'd rather do the one than the three just to say that I have a full calendar. So I think it's amazing that you said that. And it leads me into like one of the questions I have is like, how do you tailor your service to meet different client needs while maintaining the consistency in your brand experience? Because we're with you having such a high touch valued company, I'm sure that maintaining the same kind of consistency, not only in your client experience, but also the execution experience has taken some navigating for you as well.
Yeah, it definitely does because every event and every client isn't
Mhm.
the same. What we can do is still provide the same level of service, like regardless of the client's budget. So at this point, our price is our price. We're not going to discount it because it doesn't fit your budget. Like one of our mentors said, our price is based on our knowledge and expertise and not
Yeah.
your budget. So we can take things away from a package to meet your budget, but we're not going to be like, oh, we're going to discount our services
Yeah.
20% to meet you where you're at. So for us, we just honestly like to keep our quality control equal
Mhm.
across the board. And then again, we tailor the experience based on the client. So we are luxury providers. So we have high end clients who it's nothing to, spend $2,000 on a social event, $5,000 for a photo booth for their wedding. And then we have those clients who want to have that luxury experience, but it's not in their budget. So we still treat those clients just as we would treat the client who is no problem for them to spend it. And we had those clients who is really not in their budget. They will save up and make it happen. And I look at it kind of just like a high end bag, a Louis Vuitton bag or something like that. Your wedding, that's a event that, for the most part is like a once in a lifetime thing where all of your loved ones are coming together. We'll all be in the same room. So you can add a lot of value into that photo booth experience where you can have everybody coming together, taking photos and probably getting some of the last captures of, your
Yeah.
grandparents, or just the fact that sometimes we're at events and people haven't had a professional photo done in so long, where it instantly makes us not look at the photo booth as just a commodity type
Yeah.
item. So it's something that for us should be privileged. Everybody's not able to have, I would say, a really great
Yeah.
photo booth at their event. So we honestly just try to treat all of our clients the same, regardless of how they come. And we just honestly keep it consistent across the board by just providing that same level of service across the board to everybody. And if it's not a match for them, they will let us know. And there have been times where we kind of had to say no to
Yeah.
the client, where we was like, even if they, like we said, if they could afford the rate, sometimes it's not worth
Uh-huh.
the headache to deal with certain.
And you'll see the red flags because it's funny. I have
Yeah.
a vendor that I work with. She had a situation. Of course, it wasn't with me. It was something else. And she called me like so disappointed, and she was going over the situation, and I was just like, there were red flags that were there. I'm like, they like you saw this was going to be an issue. And it's like, but what it is that you fight past the resistance that's telling you that this may not be a good person to take money from. And
Mhm.
then you're still right back at where you felt you were going to be because you were hoping that that person would be different. And it just doesn't happen that way. So I'm glad that you did share that too. And from the experiences that you have, what are some specific touches that you try to make for your client to say, wow, that's unforgettable or that's luxury, if that's the case?
Some of like the small things that we like to do. So for instance, we have audio guest book. And with the audio guest book, the client is able to leave a pre-recorded message for the guest to listen to when they pick up the phone, and then the guest can leave a recording of them.
So,
It's super fun. It's like we kind of make it private or like a
yeah.
confessional moment. So a lot of times it's like really heartfelt messages, stories to the couple. So one of the things that we do to add a luxury touch is we offer to the couple to get those recordings on a
Mhm.
vinyl. Then we will customize the vinyl. We'll have like their wedding photo on the front and the back. We'll put their wedding emblem, make it really pretty. We'll have it sent to us, and then we will personalize it further by putting like a branded card with a thank you message from us, letting them know, hey, thank you for booking our audio guest book. Let them know, like, hey, we would recommend to wait to listen to the album on your 1 year anniversary night with a bottle of wine and listen to the heartfelt messages, and then send it to the couple. I mean, we just feel like personal touches like that add on to a luxury feel, as well as even with like some of our wedding vendors that we work personally with. We try to send them personalized gifts as a thank you for their services. Cause like you said, one of our clients, they keep us booked out throughout the year, where I feel like at least like 11% of our revenue comes from them
Yeah.
alone. So just sending them personalized things like that. And those are things that I learned from just even working at Saks. When you have clients who come in and spending thousands and thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
dollars on you, it's really nothing to send them a hundred, $200, $300 gift, just saying thank you. So we do little things like that, not only for our clients, but the vendors that we work with closely. just always add like personal touches like that. Even just the way that sometimes like when we deliver our
Mhm.
digital files, our site is branded where even when they receive it digitally, they still go through an experience where it's not just, here's your folder through Dropbox or something
I
like that.
love that all of that thought is taken, because I think that that is so much value add, even just from on the vendor side. Because for us, the worst feeling is like when you feel as if the relationship's one sided. Especially when I'm like,
Right.
I'm helping you make money. Like, I'm sending you work. I'm out here working to get us work. And to take the time to just, even if it's not always just gifts, but just being able to give words of encouragement or just show appreciation. So if anyone is on a preferred vendor list, think about how are you showing your appreciation to the people that are also, calling you frequently, because they don't like,
Uh,
yes, it makes it easier for them, but also they don't have to. It is important to remember that it's not just because even with doing stuff inside of Honeybook, I tell people like you can't only think about my client facing. You have to also think about the relationships that you have, because especially when I'm talking to planners, I'm like, you don't want it to be that someone dreads working with you. Be it if you're a planner or a vendor, you want to make sure that anyone is interacting with your business, be it if it's a client, a vendor, a partner, or something of that nature, you don't want it to be that they're dealing with you. You want it to be that they enjoy working with you as much as you can. And of course, there will be some challenges that do occur. So one of the things that I wanted to ask are, how do you handle situation where a client's expectations aren't aligned with what's possible?
in situations like that, we try to deal. Well, I would say a lot of times when it's a situation like that, it'll probably always be like with the
Mm,
planner. Or, for instance, we did a wedding recently. We've been working at this venue for a few years now, and I guess they have a new venue
uh,
manager. And the past maybe three events that we had there, they just made the situation for setting up a little bit more difficult than it
mhm,
needed to be. So for the last one, it was for a wedding. The client had booked the portrait lounge experience. This venue, we already kind of knew going in that it would be a challenge, setup wise,
mhm.
space wise. I think when we was consulting with the bride, she originally wanted it outside. The wedding was January just
Oh,
last
it's cold.
month, so it was cold. So we couldn't do outside. So we had planned to do it where at this venue where the photo booths are typically set up. It was going to just have to make it work. So the weather made it an issue where we weren't able to repurpose the flower arches that were used for the ceremony. They were going to be repurposed for the photo experience, but they were tied down, couldn't do that. So when we got there to set up, the venue manager, I guess, didn't know what was going to be going on. She thought it was going to be a photo booth. So we had to waste time to explain what we were doing for the bride. Then she was like, we weren't going to be able to do it, that the bride was just going to have to get a photo booth set up. And it was one of them situations where it's like, the bride paid for a specific service. We can't just say, oh, hey, the venue manager, she's not comfortable with the setup or
Mhm.
whatever. And it's one of those things where like it's supposed to be game time. I think the event planner was there. She was like consulting with us, letting us know, what was going on. And she just kept like interrupting to like have unnecessary conversations about, nothing, honestly. So she started, we thought it was a situation where she was just giving us a
Uh-huh.
hard time, the past events, but she was giving the event planner a hard time, the florist a hard time. So it was one of those situations where we have been working at the venue for some time where we had a relationship with the
Mhm.
owner, where it was one of those situations where we're not going to be confrontational with the venue manager. We're not going to tell the bride we can't provide this service. We weren't going to involve the bride
Yeah.
at all because at this point she is getting ready for her
Yeah.
ceremony. So it's things like that where it's like how to diffuse the situation without getting the
Yeah.
client involved. So we just went to the manager. I mean, sorry, the owner of the venue, talked to him, let him know what was going on. And, he kind of
Yeah.
squashed it. But in situations like that, where, like you said, where it's like we don't even want to, we had a bride, if a bride was to inquire today and we were to see that they booked at
Yeah.
that venue, is one of those situations like, do we want to go there?
Ooh,
Do we tell the client like, hey, this is what's going on.
yeah.
Like, we would love to work with you. So those are one of those conversations that we recently had. And we're kind of told that typically in venue spaces, they're always like managers
Mm,
like that and they have high turnover rates. So that person may not be there long. Um, but it's always situations like that, like trying to not get the client
yes.
involved. So that's even if we go to a venue, and we possibly the venue was supposed to provide a high boy, versus getting the client involved on situations like that. We always try to always have what we would need, even if it's not provided. So we always bring our extra tables, we bring
Yeah.
extra linen, in those events where if you don't have to get the client involved, don't get the client involved. I feel like you build a lot of trust where they can depend on you without having to need them for
Yeah.
everything. So yeah, that's one situation I can think of off the top of my
No,
head.
and I'm glad that you shared that because I feel that sometimes people don't know how to handle those situations and don't understand that how you interact in those matters. And if you get the client involved, now it's immediately going to go into another direction depending on how that person now, because they're trying to focus on their special day, their special event, and it just can be chaotic. And so I appreciate you giving that share because I'm sure someone could resonate with that. So since you shared, like, that you have those experiences and your client experience is super important to you. What I want to ask is what role does post event follow up play in your client experience strategy?
It plays a huge role. Post follow up is kind of like the farewell, and in a sense of not goodbye, I'll talk to you again soon. Um, it's kind of in a sense one of my favorite, because that's when you can really see how well the client enjoyed your services, especially if you get that post event
Yeah.
Google review. So, like I said, with that, we've tested our approach over the
Mm,
years with that post event. So now, like I said, we kind of deliver our deliverables in a more aesthetic,
mm,
appealing way. And I feel like that has helped convert a lot of those clients into clicking that button to leave a
yeah.
review. But it plays a huge role saying those thank yous, even though a lot of times we'll like use AI to help generate those
Yeah.
processes. I still like to go back in and personalize it by saying something personable, whether it was like at the event about the couple, just to make it real and
Yes.
authentic. And I feel like that really helps. A lot of times we get a lot of repeat clients. I think about 16
That's
percent.
great. Yeah.
Yes, 16% of our revenue is from
I
repeat
love that.
clients.
And so since you shared that you use different tools, what are the main tools that you use currently just for your client experience? Like if there's any apps or platforms you currently use.
For our client experience, mainly we use HoneyBook. That's our CRMS
Mm,
of choice. And we absolutely love HoneyBook. It just streamlines everything, keep all of our communications in one spot. And I just like the customization of it all where you can make things
mhm.
look pretty. It's like we said, we're in the event of weddings. So everything is about the aesthetic. So we really love HoneyBook. That's the biggest tool we use. And of course, we use the AI within
Yeah.
HoneyBook as well as like AI with ChatGPT. And I think like as far as the client relationship and client experience in that regard, those are the two biggest tools we
And
use.
so everyone knows that I'm excited to hear that he uses HoneyBook because I love HoneyBook and I always recommend for people to use HoneyBook. And the reason why I even asked the questions that I asked today is because often I always try to encourage event professionals to look at their business in a four-stage process. We have our inquiry process, we have our onboarding, we have how we execute, and then we have our offboarding. And all four of
Yeah.
those in general make up our client experience. So it helps us with understanding how do we add value to our client at each one of these stages and how do we do that consistently. So I'm glad that you were able to share your experience. And one of the things I would love for you to share is like what advice would you give other uh, who want to create a memorable client experience in their business?
I like what you just said as far as like how you broke that down into four
Uh,
phases, because after you said that, it makes me, I guess, like Instagram would be, of course, a part of our client experience, as well as our
yeah,
website would be a part of our client experience, as well as our Google
yeah.
profile. Because, like you said, that inquiry, that what was the
Is the
phases again?
inquiry your onboarding. So your onboarding is from once they make that first payment to like onboarding, like it might be asking them for the designs, like for those of you that may not be doing
Mhm.
luxury like mirrors, but you're doing photo booths. So that's like if you're doing watermarks, you're finding out in the beginning, like if there's names or colors that they need to have on there. Execution is going to be anything leading up to you actually executing that event. So finding out what time you can get access to the space, who should you be asking for, parking, reassuring the client about when you're arriving. Those things are all going into the execution. And then offboarding is what's happening after you do your event. So in the photo world of it all, it's probably even having an email that goes to the client the day of, the day after, saying it was great working with you. Just so you know, you can expect to get your photo album or your photo library by this date, or like whatever you need, because often what happens in our world of events is that if we're not telling people what they should be expecting next, they're going to reach out to you anyway, so you might as well beat
Mhm.
them to the bunt,
Set that
to say.
expectation.
And then that too helps with how people perceive you, and they're like, I didn't even have to chase this person down. They immediately gave all of what I need to expect. So, especially for those of you, when I'm talking to like wedding photographers and videographers, where their offboarding technically is a lot longer, because the first thing I got to do is send the raw images to the library. Then we have to make sure they give us their selections. And then we have to let them know, okay, we receive your selections. You can expect to get these edits within blah, blah, blah. And that's what the
Mhm.
beauty inside of a platform like HoneyBook is that you can think to yourself, best case scenario, if I want my business to have this luxury experience, what are the things that I can do to add value to my clients in the onboarding process so that they know what to do next? Because the worst feeling for some of them is, I paid you, now what? And
Right.
it can't be that it's just money exchange and then I talk to you 2 days before the event, because there's no
Mhm.
rapport, there's no relationship. So then what happens is that if anything happens, there's not a relationship there that can allow some footing
There's
so
no
that there can
trust.
be compassion, empathy, and proper communication, because you've treated yourself just as a vendor, not as someone that's an expert at what you do. So that's my little soapbox for the
Yeah.
second.
So to back to your question with that, like I said, those other three, our website, our Google profile, and our Instagram will also be a part of that
Mm-hmm.
inquiry phase, because before they even inquire, typically they've seen one of the three. So like for us, our client experience, like we are always revamping our Google profile. And I feel like it is a funnel that keeps feeding itself. So like I said, a lot of times I think that, yeah, 30% of our business comes from Google searches. So our website, the Google profile, they see those things first. So they instantly see the Google reviews that we have, so they can kind of get experience of what our clients have felt. They may see our Instagram, which I like to look at as our
Mm-hmm.
storefront. It's the first place that people can kind of see those visuals. And then from our Instagram, it leads them to our website where they can see all of our services, what we offer, learn more about us. And then from the website, it takes them to the inquiry form. And with the inquiry form, it then goes to HoneyBook, but then the experience from HoneyBook, all of that, everything aesthetically looks
Yes.
the same. The language, everything speaks to the client a certain way. Even, I feel like the way our contact form looks, the questions that we ask, even I feel like the way that the client fills out the contact form lets me know like how serious that client is. And then from there, once they fill out the inquiry form and we communicate, we try to reply as fast as we can. Typically, if it's a wedding, I used to respond like via text message to everybody, but then everybody's texting my personal line or communication get missed because information is in my text thread. So email all of the wedding clients back instantly, trying to get all of that automated so we don't have to manually do that. Corporate clients, we always pick up the phone to try to give a corporate client a call because things just become so much more with corporate events that I feel like a conversation is
Yes.
needed. But then also, I feel like a part of our client experience is we typically like to communicate the best way the client likes to communicate. So, like I said, sometimes we'll email a bride or a event planner and they may ask to schedule a call. So if they do, you call the client. Some may say they prefer to text. Some may say they prefer to email. That's okay. We do the same thing for our corporate clients. Typically, a lot of corporate clients prefer to talk on the phone, but you'll find a lot that will prefer to do everything via email. And a lot of times you meet your client where they're at. Once we go through the whole consultation, sometimes that varies depending on the client. With both clients, we like to send what we would call decks or proposals, and in that, with the weddings, we try to make everything look aesthetically appealing. In Honeybook, we're able to do that easily. Have all of our templates like on there from our smart files that kind of like elaborately list all of the services that we offer. Over the past couple of years, we refined a lot because we felt like in our client experience, we were having clients who were getting decision fatigue by providing them too much information and too many products that sometimes you may lose a client because they get overwhelmed by the amount of information that they get. So we had to learn how to refine that by not giving too much, but giving what's most
And I'm
valuable.
glad you mentioned that because I don't think a lot of people are present to that. Like, because often I'll have people that will say, "Oh, I do all these things," and they want to send it all. I was like, if you get anyone remotely like me, like just tell, like I don't like if you give me a ton to read and I don't know the difference, and I don't think the people are present to the fact that you're the expert.
Hmm. That's one thing I always tell my partner. Like you, even when we're at events, like I had said, a lot of times, don't ask the
Yeah.
client. So it's like a lot of times him and I, it be in those moments like where we would find like conflict, where I was like, but you're the expert. Don't ask
Yeah.
the client. Tell the client what you're gonna do. And then if they see differently, let them tell you. We can't always be in there like, oh, should I do this or where's this or
Uh-huh.
where's that? Be the expert. And I even tell them during the client experience. Because it's like a lot of times with when clients are inquiring, we have a budget section. So they may pick, we have like a services section where they show us the service they're most interested in, tell us
Yeah.
their budget, and then like give us a little bit
Yeah.
more detail. So with him, a lot of times he would just stick exactly to what the contact
Uh-huh.
form says. I mean, I'm like, you have to analyze what they're saying, give them what they want, but also give them your recommendations based
Hmm.
on your expertise. So, like for me, when I'm working, especially with social events, I would provide them the information on what they
Yeah.
inquired about. Sometimes they may say they want a mirror photo booth with $500 budget. So it's like, okay, well, we know for sure you can't get a mirror photo booth for $500. So we will let them know about what it is that they want, offer something that is within the budget they said that they have, and then I would give my recommendation based off of all of the information that you provided me. And then from there is like, we can have the conversation about all of the things. So, like I said, for people who do have budget restraints, we can communicate and kind of customize and tailor a budget based
Hmm.
on that. And then sometimes you'll have people who say, "Oh, I only have $1,000 budget," and we get to talking about things. I'm asking what's important to them and their vision for the event. And then that client in the end spends $2,000 on
Uh-huh.
the package because now they see the value. They also didn't we properly
Yeah.
educate the client, our value on the actual product and everything that we do. And I think that helps with securing the client. So it's like after they make that initial payment, even with our client experience, we try to offer them options when it comes to payment. Being a luxury provider, our prices are high. So we give them the option to always do a deposit or
Hmm.
retainer to secure your date. And then we split the rest in like two or
Yeah.
three payments, one like midway, and then the final payment due 7 days before the
Yes.
event. And then we have flexibility with that depending on the total
Yeah.
booking amount. And then sometimes with HoneyBook now, it offers clients
Hmm.
to, we can check on there if we can do what is it, like a
If they
discount for
pay
full payment.
full and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the only discount you'll get if you are paying your full amount at the
Yeah.
time of booking. And even with that, we don't even tell them how much the percentage is. We just say the system will allow a discount at the time of booking. So, like after that, like you said, we immediately or not even sometimes immediately, but we always reach back out to the client to say, hey, payment has been received. Thank you so much for trusting and supporting us. And then we set the expectation as far as the execution. Our design team will reach out to you the week of your event to start to collect design elements. Our logistics team will reach out to coordinate anything that we need to do on that end. If we've already worked at the venue before, we'll let the client know, like, hey, we know the ins and out of
Okay.
load in and load out. And even like you said, being an expert in that, like if you've been at this venue several times before, you know everything that's going on. When you are in that consulting phase and you mention these things to the
Hmm.
client, I feel like that puts ease on them. Like, okay, so you've been here. I don't have to, that's another email I don't
Yeah.
have to write. And it's just like those things, but it's like all of those little things kind of add up where at this point, like in our business, we used to, of course, we still do all of the responding, but we have
Hmm.
personas or pseudonyms within our business who are answering these emails. So we have Anthony, who is our events coordinator. We have a Brian who is in financing, where if somebody is late on a payment or a credit card
Yeah.
decline, since we see a lot of our clients face to face, we can have those people email them to kind of like be a little stern, but also
Yes.
professional to kind of keep the
Yeah.
ball rolling. But I feel like, yeah, all of those phases help out a lot, and HoneyBook makes it so easy by being able to communicate, send files, all of that kind of in one spot. So, like I said, regardless if you're a single operator, if you have multiple people on your team, whoever has access to your CRM, they're able to effectively
Hmm.
communicate with the client and kind of keep everything in one place.
I think you've added so much value into this conversation for people to really start thinking about inside their business. What type of experience do they want to be able to execute for the client? And for those of you that are wanting to really have this luxury premier brand, standing on your price in a way that I'm not just creating this price just to create this price, but I'm also going to stand to the point of the experience I want to be able to provide, because people will pay for the things that they value, and understanding that
Uh-huh.
you don't have to give up the quality of what you want or even the price point that you want just to make it work for someone else, because then you can really showcase and give the value you want to the people that are able to make that investment. So I just want to say thank you so very much, Troy, for sharing all that you've been able to share. Can you please tell people how to get connected to you?
Yes, you can follow me on my personal social at Troy Barnes Jr., and that's just Troy Barnes Jr. On Instagram. You can also follow our photo booth business page at MIPBCo on Instagram as
All
well.
right. It's been a pleasure, everyone. And I hope that you've learned something that can help you grow in your business.
Thank you so much.